I'm Zoe, this is Gosport Grit, welcome. This is our vodcast that is putting place before party and putting people at the heart of the conversation. And I'm really pleased today that my guest is Annelies James. Hi. Which I know it's going to be difficult for you, Annelies, because you're used to hosting and normally you're also behind the camera.
Yeah, double weird.
But it's great to have you. Annelies is an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, a videographer, marketeer, a storyteller, the list would go on.
Goes on and on.
So it's great to have you here. Maybe a quick question first of all.
Yeah.
Holiday, adventure or relaxation, city or beach?
Oh, well, I've done a lot of travelling.
Yeah.
And I love like a big city like Japan. Love like big city lights, like makes you feel like tiny. But then I do love a beach and just to relax. I think at the moment it would be beach because I need some zen.
Yes, I would agree with you. I do love a beach.
And we also live by a beach, so I'm like,
Yeah.
lovely.
The sound of the water.
Yeah.
It's really lovely, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Meditative.
It is. Annelies, first question I'm going to ask you is, I suppose, really lovely to hear your journey. So I've started your entrepreneur, videographer. Today we're going to obviously talk about changing the narratives, and your storytelling side of your business would be great to explore. But you are a businesswoman, so we are going to talk about small businesses. And small businesses, I believe, are the backbone, really, of community.
Yeah.
But first of all, tell us your journey and your background, because you've got decades of experience in your role.
I think I've got like a weird story because my original career, my original passion was to become a teacher. I was really inspired by a teacher at school called Beth Williams. And I loved her. I just thought she was such an inspiration. And she was my media lecturer, but also the head of the school. And so I was like, I'm going to be you. So I really believe in role modelling and sort of seeing the path and taking the path. So I basically did everything in my power to become her. So I did my degree, my master's. I got a part-time job teaching, and then I did my PGC in the evenings. And I sort of had hit the jackpot. I was a teacher at 23, but I had a bad situation in that college with a member of staff, and it wasn't very comfortable. And she kind of sucked away my passion for teaching. So I sort of had to go away, lick my wounds and think, what am I going to do now? So then I had a bit of a funny journey. I became an executive assistant. I was an executive assistant for a lady who was the head of HR. And so I ended up doing lots of internal comms and events planning for staff, which I really loved. And did that for a while. Then I moved into sales, business development. I travelled a lot. I lived away, like I lived in Toronto for a bit. And then eventually sort of moved more and more into marketing and internal comms. And I kind of loved it because I was working, but I thought I could be freer than this. So one Christmas, I was in this organisation and I just quit. And then in the January, I pitched myself to them as a contractor. So I ended up doing my job, but for more money as a marketeer. And that was my first sort of dipping my toe in employment. So I did that, fast forward, got another job, and then quit and was like, I don't want to be in an organisation. I want to be bigger. I want to help more people. I want to be broader. And that's when I just launched into self-employment. I had no money, no plan, but I had a good reputation and people just booked me for all sorts of marketing. And I've been doing that for 8 years now.
And your business is very much focused on the impact of community, which is why we wanted to have a chat with you. That journey is actually similar to mine, and I think the one thing that I would say to most people when we talk about businesses is that leap of faith is sometimes that risk-taking and that confidence in yourself, and like you say, the reputation or the people that you have around you to support you. Similar to you, my journey started off in teaching, and I still do connect with teaching, but I think through the words that you just said, the one thing that's quite striking is it's not fixed. And when we talk about a career or going through our lives, we sometimes have this fixed mindset of my skill is engineering and that's how it's, or marketeering and that's how it's progressing. But actually you've
well, I
taken
say this
roots.
a lot. I do a lot of talks to I do a lot of professional mentoring for young people in university. I go to do school talks a lot. And I say to them, pick up all the skills. Pick up everything. Like, I'm a qualified celebrant, I'm a qualified coach, I've got counselling skills, I've just kind of collected everything. And it's weird that sometimes you're in a place in your life when suddenly all those skills make sense in that moment that you're in. So it's, I think, just collect all the skills.
Yeah, I like that, collecting all the skills. I talk about your personal toolkit, and I would say that's very similar, that you have that toolkit. And similar to you, I coach, and it is that building that toolkit. That's really interesting that you say that. And I think I talk very much about leadership, that you're right, it's that moment in time and seeing that. But I also see that as a collective of people, that you're cogs. So why is something a success? Is because a collection of people come together at that moment in time and it's right.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, I'm sort of a bit witchy and weird too. And I do believe in kind of the universe creates that. And I do think there's a reason I'm in Gosport, and that's because I have travelled the world. I've lived in different places. I've kind of moved around a lot. And there's something about me being here right now. And I had a friend once upon a time that called it like finding your true north. And it's the place you're supposed to be. And it feels right now, with my collection of skills and all my experiences, this is the place to make impact, to do community projects, to understand strategically what's going on across the town and think, what's missing, what can we do? And I love that.
Yeah, so let's talk about maybe some of your projects that you are doing in Gosport.
Yes.
I just want to leave TEDx for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
But why don't we talk about some of your other projects that you're doing in Gosport? Because you're doing some fantastic work.
Yeah, well, I just last year, I think there's a lot of political division, and I'm very much an everyman when it comes to politics. So I was conscious that there was a lot of stuff, and Gosport's a small town, and politically, it's, as a small business, it's quite difficult to navigate sometimes. And I was conscious of like kind of flags and things like that. And I thought, how can we showcase our town in a way that's actually for everyone and shows the real root of our Gosport? Like, this is our town. It's not, you know, we're not puppets. It's our town. We live and breathe it every day. So that was born, was the Community Tapestry Project, which I went for a grant for and got, and it was 190 people submitted these little fabric squares, all like illustrated with their story, you know, from 2 to 92, and it was just lovely. And that is still circulating around Gosport at the moment, so it's in the Albert Bank, and it's just moved to Gosport Council actually. And that was such a feel-good factor of, you know, so many stories about the beach, so many stories about walking, so many stories about people's pets.
There was, and community groups. I remember seeing it in the Albert Bank with community groups that had done the tapas.
And it was just lovely to bring it all together. It was just joyful. And people say all the time when they see it, they're like, oh, it just fills me with joy. It's so colourful. And I thought it was going to be kind of a bit crazy to look at, but it kind of works because it's so eclectic. And as you can tell from my style, it's kind of like my vibe. So the community story was really lovely. But then also I was supporting the Hampshire Cultural Trust with their Gosport Heritage Generator project, which is National Lottery funded. And there was heritage projects being born across Gosport. And I thought heritage puppets would be such a cute thing to instill in children, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, right now, about our stories, about our heritage, so that later they become the ambassadors of Gosport. So, you know, creating puppets of characters from Gosport's past, storybooks and maps and all sorts of fun stuff. And the schools have reacted really well, and the puppets are amazing. And again, the creation of it was amazing community people, volunteers. We've got an amazing puppeteer that lives locally, illustrator in Stoke Road. So it was born of an idea about how do we encourage and embed history, but also the collective that came together to make it happen was just beautiful. And I loved it.
And using local people, all those skills that we have locally. And I think, you know, that heritage story is really important when we talk about our town and the younger generation taking that story through. Gosport was 100 a couple of years ago, and I remember we did that looking through all of the mayors of Gosport and telling the story through the mayors of Gosport. So let's talk about TEDx, because I know it was a really fantastic success last year, and you're just now launching into your second one for this year. So tell us a bit about Gosport TEDx.
Well, I did TEDx Southampton back in 2020, and it was lovely, but it was a bit glossy. It was a bit fancy. And when I moved to Gosport, I thought there's this statement of this is Gosport, but it's not good. It's like, no, this is Gosport. And I thought we need to challenge that. And like, it's even, we'll talk about this in a bit, I'm sure, but there is that mindset that I think limits us a little bit as a town. Yeah. But I thought, let's change the narrative. Let's challenge the narrative. And so I'd done it before, so I thought, let's go for it. And, you know, storytelling was big on the agenda, also because I'd been doing the heritage puppets and the collage. And I wanted basically people to share amazing stories, to showcase that our town has amazing ideas that can be shared globally. Yeah. We had 109 applications. We auditioned 37 people and we got to 14 speakers who were so brave and brilliant, and they went with the process. But again, it pulled together communities, all voluntary, it's all not-for-profit, you know, from speaking coaches to people helping with event support, logistics. Like, we had, again, a gang of people come together and say, actually, I want to get on board with this.
Yeah, and give back.
And it was amazing. In the room, there was 100 people in the room on the day. The talks have currently had about 40,000 hits online, which is brilliant. And yeah, there was appetite for it. So this year it's back with the theme of connection and all of the different things, like connection to past, it could be nature, it could be future, it could be anything. And already we've had 70 people register interest and the applications don't even open until the end of April. So I think it's going to be
still time to get applications.
Yes. Oh yeah. So it'll open on the 27th of April and it'll be open till May. And the show is going to be in September.
Oh, perfect. And obviously it's a global success, TEDx. So I think to have it in our town is absolutely, you know, wonderful to see that, you know, we're showcasing those individuals that are, and maybe for the first time, publicly speaking. Because
100%. It's really important to me that it's normal folk with real ideas. And our group last year, there was a couple of people who'd kind of had some like speaking experience, but generally everyone was from the, like, just off the street, like, had some ideas, and it did raise aspiration, and it did. People walked away from that event and were like, I was absolutely blown away. I laughed, I cried, and I think it showcased that we do have more to offer than this is Gosport. It was like, well, this is Gosport.
It is. And that's really where this idea was born from, wasn't it, with the vodcast? And I think you're quite right. It was very much the, and we explored this within our first couple of vodcasts of why we're doing it. It was that negative narrative, and whether or not that was in the council chambers or whether or not it was maybe just misinformation, I think, or myths of Gosport.
Well, my partner, he probably won't mind me saying, he's born and bred in Gosport. He's now 48, and he'll walk down the high street and he'll be really damning. Yeah. And I'm, as a person who's moved here, chosen here, I'm always like, babe, like, actually, this is great and this is great and that's a small independent and this is too. And I'm trying to kind of encourage him, but if you've lived and worked in Gosport for a long time, I think that can be that entrenched sort of negativity. And I think it's a shame. Sometimes you have to be a tourist in your own town and see the good things again. Like go to Coffee Quarters or go to the Alma Bank and have where else are you going to go to a heritage pub and have a glass of Prosecco looking over the Solent like that? Yeah. Beautiful.
Or our breweries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Powder Monkey, amazing.
There is, isn't there? And a tourist in your own town.
I'm obsessed with
quite like that. That's a really good statement. And I think it's seeing it in different eyes, isn't it? And I would agree with you because I've lived in Gosport all my life. I've worked in and out of Gosport, but contributed quite a bit in and around here. And actually, I'm still blown away. I mean, when I was mayor, it was very easy to navigate things that I wasn't familiar with. But the exposure of that was fantastic to actually be that tourist in my own town. Again, and if we were to think about sort of negative thinking, I think about it as a mindset. That when we think about things negatively, actually that's all we see. And we're wired to think negatively.
100%. It's kind of like if you've been locked in a cage and then they take the cage away and you sort of still imagine the cage is there. But actually you just have to open the door and see it. But it's like training yourself into the positivity. And there's so many people and so many advocates in Gosport now trying to change the narrative that I think it's sort of seeping out into people, and they're like, oh yeah, actually, did you know we have amazing cycle paths? And actually, did you know we have over 250 heritage sites on the heritage list? Actually, did you know we had 17 miles of coastline? Like, people are telling those little positive stories, and I think it's amazing. So
it is. So we first met through my work with Business South. So when we sort of talk about speaking positively about our town, a lot of the work you do with that is about that storytelling and selling. Because obviously one thing that I'm really keen for Gosport is that we attract inward investment. So from a business perspective, how do we support that? So maybe do you want to talk about your work that you do with Business South? And I know you've just come back from MIPIMS.
So I think I love Business South. I've worked with them for over 8 years now, and I think I love the fact that they also get partners together of that high level to actually look at and challenge and push agendas, especially in Parliament. So they'll actually go and kind of put forward our case as the Central South, which I think is a brilliant strategy. But you're getting those partners who are really committing themselves to placemaking, who are like, actually, what is going on across the region? How do we complement, take away competition? But, you know, so it's not Portsmouth versus Southampton versus this versus that. It's actually like, how can we all do better as a region? Because we recognise our natural assets, we recognise our infrastructure, we recognise the greatness of our area. And when you've got those bigger companies who are taking pride and putting money in and going and flying the flag in France or in Leeds, that gives you real faith. As a small business, that gives me massive faith to think I've chosen the right place here. Because those bigger businesses, in their flying the flag, are telling everyone in that ecosystem to rise up and to basically be like, actually, let's all be champions of place. Let's all put this on the map.
And connect. And that's what I love about that work. I always talk about two things: an economic corridor of joining, so they're not in competition, that we join, and Gosport being part of that economic corridor of the Central South, but also the cultural corridor, because obviously Portsmouth are going for the City of Culture, Southampton obviously put a bid in. We would then look at the culture and heritage we have here in Gosport. I think there's very much, when we talk about Central South, that we can join all of that in.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about small businesses, and I mentioned that I believe small businesses are the backbone of a community, and definitely within our town. So you started your business 8 years ago, and we've sort of heard a bit about your journey. But maybe if someone was to ask you, or thinking about starting something up, what are maybe the challenges or the road paths that you found within those 8 years, and how have you navigated them?
So I think there's a number of challenges for small businesses, not least of all yourself. Like becoming your own manager and your own leader is absolutely mind-blowing. I thought I was quite good at leadership because I used to run teams and stuff in employment. But when I came to managing myself, I realised I was probably the worst manager ever. Like, I gave myself no breaks, there was no welfare. Like, I was like, no, you can't have a holiday. You can't have a holiday. You've got imposter syndrome. You know, it was like constant, that sort of stuff. So I think self-management is really, really important. I think there's also something, especially in Gosport as a smaller town, it's about kind of finding your fit and that co-opetition. So we've got a lot of creative industries, and, you know, essentially there is competition between them, but there's a collaboration as well. So I like the kind of idea that they kind of see the gap and then they fill it. So I interviewed a lady called Karina from So Tribal. She does sewing, but she recognises that, like, Flaming Good and different places basically do slightly different. So she was like, I'm going to tweak my offer to do this part of it so that I'm not stepping on the toes. So there's an awareness, which I think is really important. But I think there is a struggle for business. I think pricing generally, the cost of living is horrendous, and arguably I think that it's the make or break of businesses. I am a very lean business. People kind of have an idea of, like, I'm going to be a small business, I'm going to get a studio, I'm going to get a shop, I'm going to do this. And they burden themselves with absolute loads of costs they can't control, or they're like, I'm going to take on staff. For me, it's always been about lean, about keeping my overheads really, really low. If I take on staff, it's subcontractors, so they are also committed to themselves and their own business reputation. So when they do work for me, it's because they want to do good for themselves. I think that really it's about slow growth. It's about taking small steps, running it lean, making sure you can afford everything, and really forecasting some of that stuff as well. Because I remember I didn't even do a profit and loss when I first started. I just started, and I was lucky that people came in and helped me. And I used to charge such a little amount of money as well.
Yeah.
And I realised I was damaging myself and I was damaging my industry. So actually putting your pricing, the right amount of pricing, you know, charge what you're worth.
And valuing yourself and your business.
And if someone says they can't afford it, don't be embarrassed or ashamed by that. They're just not your client. That's okay. They can't afford you, and that's okay. And I really believe in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know as part of your business, you also pay back. So you do a lot of voluntary stuff as well. And I know that's really important to you. And I think talking through there, you know, when you say about sort of dealing with contractors and subcontracting and obviously widening that reach, it's about aligning those values, isn't it? And working with individuals, including paid clients that align with your values.
Yeah. I mean, I'm quite lucky because I think when I first started, I would sort of say yes to everything and everyone. And then I decided actually, rather than cause myself issue, I would just not work with people I don't like.
Yeah.
And having the bravery to do that frees up all that lovely space and time and mental capacity to then think, I like these clients. Like, I work my arse off for clients because I love them and I want to do a really good job for them. If I work for a client that I don't really like, it's just soul crushing.
Yeah.
But that's a brave move.
It is. It's skin in the game, isn't it? So I set up my own consultancy called Jack Shaw about 2.5 years ago. And that was mainly to give me flexibility with my other role in politics that I do. But I still wanted to have, I suppose, what I would call a vocational career and not just politics. And you're quite right, it's really important. It was really, really difficult to take that leap. And there was a couple of things I found, first of all, was exactly what you said, was valuing myself, my time, but also there were days where I found it really difficult to motivate myself. It just seemed so hard. But on the way, I think it's exposed me to a whole load of new people, new experiences and some fantastic stories. And I think actually what it has done is enriched my life, but also helped me within my role in politics and community, because I believe that we need to live an experience to make decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about kind of being self-aware enough to be learning and then applying and learning and applying, which is exhausting, actually, because in a role, you're kind of just going along with it. You kind of have your structure of things to do. But when you're structureless, you can do anything, can't you? You can work with anyone, you can go anywhere. But it's trying to find self-management in that.
It is. So self-aware, you mentioned that. What have you learned about yourself in the 8 years of starting your business then, Annelies?
I think I've learned about self-awareness is that growth isn't linear. And that sometimes success is right, in my life, I've kind of climbed mountains and I feel like that was the mountain of choice for success. And I've got to the top of the mountain, I thought, oh, I'm on the wrong mountain. Okay, but that's okay, because at any time you can come back down the mountain and just climb another mountain or a hill. And I think it's having the self-awareness to think, is this okay? Yeah. Am I in the right place? Am I surrounded by the right people? And then edit and tweak accordingly. Yeah. And also, even with yourself, am I being the best version of me? Am I doing the best work? Am I creatively switched on? And just asking those questions, I suppose, so that you keep yourself aware and you keep things fluid and moving and positive. Because I burn out very regularly because I sometimes forget to check in. And then when I come back down and I ground again and I'm like, okay, this is okay. Yeah.
And we talk about burnout and what I sort of talk when I do my leadership and coaching is when we talk about resilience, people think that that's resilience.
Yeah, it's like,
it's actually going down and hitting that burnout or rock bottom or having a failure is okay. The resilience bit or grit is how quickly you can get bounced back up. And for some people that find that difficult, they obviously spend a longer time down there. So when we talk about resilience and grit, actually it's that bounce back effect, and actually what you'll do is you'll go up a hill and down a hill and down a mountain.
But also if you've got the right clients, they will be okay if you're not operating 100% of your best self. They'll be like, oh, it's okay, because I know still what you're producing is great, even if you're not operating at 100% of yourself. And I think that allowance and kindness is really important.
Yeah, kindness, definitely. So let's bring it back to Gosport.
Yes.
And community. So we have a really good programme in Gosport called Gosport Ambassadors. And I know you're involved. So do you want to tell us a bit about how maybe people can contribute to their community and get involved as a Gosport Ambassador?
So I first went to the Gosport Ambassadors years ago now, and at the time they were establishing different pillars. So there was sustainability pillar, there was heritage pillar, business, and I headed up. I accidentally sort of got voted in. I was like, oh my God. And the idea was offline, outside of the ambassadors meeting, that we would work as groups and like kind of move things along and inward investment, like encourage people to move here or work here or do events here. Didn't quite pan out like that. So now the Gosport Ambassadors is a brilliant touch point where you go along, I think it's every 3 months, and there's lots of people feeding back about initiatives, about how to get people involved in different things. And I love it because I go along and I think, oh my God, there's so many things going on. And luckily, I've actually kind of got touch points in most of those things going on. But so if you're not a local person, or you've moved here, or you're setting up a new business and you want to kind of get in the mix, going to somewhere like that is great because you really learn the vibe of what's happening, and you can also spot opportunities for collaboration or new initiatives. So I really love it. And from a time capacity point of view, it's really easy because I'm the person, when I first started, I did a lot of networking. But I just don't have time for that anymore. So I have to really strategically choose the things I go to that have the best elevation for me. And I think Gosport Ambassadors is great for that.
It brings everything under one house, doesn't it? Because there was lots of people wanting to celebrate and story tell about Gosport, but it was a bit fractured, wasn't it? And actually what Gosport Ambassadors does is bring that under one roof, which is fantastic.
And even though it's run by the council, it's very led by everybody in the room.
Yes.
So whether it's like the Submarine Museum giving an update, or Community First talking about volunteer events, or me talking about puppets, it's lovely to see all the different facets.
It has. I've dipped in and out. I haven't been to the last couple, but I've attended quite a few. And like you say, those themes, whether or not it's green spaces, all the way through to heritage, inward investment, businesses, education and skills, I think were there as well, isn't there? Which is really, really good. So I'm going to draw this to a close, but I know you're normally the host, and you've done extremely well.
I want to be like, thanks for joining us on Gosport Grit.
For allowing me to interview you. But I'm going to switch the hat. Is there anything you want to ask me from the one question? So I'm going to give you the host just for the last minute or so.
I feel suddenly much more comfortable, thank you. I think the thing I'd ask you specifically around Gosport Grit and this initiative, who would be like your absolute ideal guest to represent Gosport right now?
That's a really striking question.
Or maybe sector instead of person.
Yeah. Our unique selling point is our heritage and culture and creative sector. And I think where we've all, and the viewers will see this, that we've all done one-to-one interviews, actually that has been the initial theme, I feel, that community payback creative. So, there isn't one person, and I think that's why we've had individuals like yourself, and I know we've spoken to a few more individuals within that theme of creative culture, whether or not it's music, maybe that would be the next theme. So I think there's much to say about that. I think when we talk about Gosport, there are our community groups, but I also would say things like our defence and marine sector, our skills and education. So I think there's much to explore.
So Gosport Grit's going to go on forever.
Yes.
Because you're going to have to showcase all of these areas and all of these people.
It
so
is.
We'll be here when we're 85.
Yeah, excellent. I'm not too sure, 85, but no, thank you. So this is Gosport Grit, and if you would like to story tell yourself and be on our vodcast, please get in touch. Otherwise, this is Gosport Grit, and thanks for joining us.